Blackhouse on 106.1 FM with you're in the studio today with Eddie and Nani.
Hello.
Bit of a shift up from previous weeks. This week's social media superstar is Liya.
Hello.
One moment. Try now.
Oh, hello.
She's back. She's back in the studio.
Oh,
I hobbled in on my crutch. And I'm going to share my amazing filmography skills with you today.
That's fun. So Liya's obviously been out for the last couple of weeks, so we're really glad to have her back in the studio.
Welcome back.
Before we kick into it all, a couple of kind of brief announcements. So Zanaka tonight is having their winter fashion exhibition. It's at Zanaka on Taranaki Street. Comes with a complimentary glass of bubbly, which is ideal. Go to the Zanaka Facebook page. They've got an event and they've got a ticket link. There's only like 35 tickets, so they're running out. So you get in fast.
If you want to be able to squeeze in that door and watch the amazing Jessie dressed up.
Oh, is it Jessie tonight?
Jessie's gonna be dressed up in her gears.
Yes.
Looking fabulous as usual. Get in there and get your tickets now.
Perfect. And then the other thing tonight is Double G Make a Banger, long time friend of the radio of the show. He has another amazing hip hop lineup tonight at Valhalla.
Oh, hey.
12 acts.
Oh, at Valhalla.
12.
I know, that was mad, right?
Yeah. So 12 acts, one night of pure madness and energy, unlike anything you've ever seen before. So actually, it's 11 o'clock till 3 a.m. So you can get tickets available on Cosmic. So actually, you've got quite a nice kind of evening of it's an evening of blacktivity. You've got a really nice evening of blacktivity. You can hit up Zanaka, go to the fashion show, go to the pub, have a drink, and then hit up Valhalla and enjoy some fantastic hip hop.
And there's something happening at El Barrios tonight. I think it's a Cuba thing.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get time to really check it out, but yeah.
So so I'm guessing it's that time of year, because Jamaican Independence Day is today. I think it's just the Independence Day time of year.
Right.
I think that I've noticed all the Latin American, all the Caribbean countries have their Independence Days.
They said, let's just do this all together, eh? Right.
What
Colonizer out.
You scared me, colonizer.
So moving into introduce our guest today, we have in studio Octavius Jones.
Yeah.
They are the Wellington and the LGBTQ plus rep for Black Creatives Aotearoa. They are a writer and a poet?
Yes.
You're a poet?
I try to be.
And a Fulbright Scholar. So, how are you doing? How's your day been?
I'm good. Yeah, the day's been good. Wellington can be a mixed bag in terms of weather, so it's been a nice day.
Well, fantastic. Welcome in, Octavius.
Thank you so much.
See you again.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again too, my friend.
Yes.
We did a play together, y'all.
We did. It was my first ever play. That was my first time acting on stage since I was 15.
You did good.
Yo, so give us, just to start us off, give us a rundown on the Octavius Jones experience thus far.
Thus far, yeah, okay. I'm a little old, so now I'm playing.
I wasn't saying that,
But hey everyone, my name is Octavius. I don't care any pronouns you use for me. I'm fine with. Just put some respect on my name, and I'll love you back. But I'm from Los Angeles, California. That's where I was born. And then I grew up around San Bernardino County in California, so it's just about an hour, without traffic, but LA traffic is 2.5 hours outside of LA. But grew up there, and then I did my undergrad in Wisconsin, Madison.
Oh, wow.
And it was a journey. I went because they gave me free money for school.
Yes.
That's
Get those dollar bills.
Hey, if you know America and school debt and what it does to you, you will do anything for free money.
I was in the States, one year entire student loan for 3 years of university.
Wow.
And it was
it's crazy when you look at the differences in price. And friends, even just from undergrad, and you know how at that time too, you don't even know what you are or what you want to do, so you're jumping around. So they would spend 5 years and come out with $60,000 in debt.
My God.
It was hectic.
that's not nice.
Not at all. But yeah, I did that. Was studying again, trying to find myself as well. I went in to study medicine. and tried my best to stay in that field, but it
was...
Octavius. Dr. Jones. Well, because, at the time, too, growing up, people would call me Doc Ock because of Spider-Man.
I know!
So,
I really wanted to do like an intro, like pretending to be like J. Jonah Jameson. It's like, our guest here today is a maniacal scientist. He's a virulent enemy of Spider-Man, Dr. Octavius.
I wish I was that way.
I know, right? Like, but people expect you as a black person to be like all spicy. You're like, are you shit kidding me? I'm like traumatized and shy. Like, I have a face. It lasts about 30 seconds. It's my black face. And then I take it down a level. And I stop embarrassing myself.
Right? I wonder sometimes, do we allow ourselves to be introverts in our community? Because
right?
I am an introvert, but I am, a rehabilitated or a converted introvert.
Right?
You have to function in this world as,
you do. And you get this thing where you have to kind of perform your blackness to a certain level.
Yeah.
And there was even this awesome music video from I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, which was black people performing blackface. It's exactly that. You've got to be extroverted and jazz hands, but actually you're tired. Tired is what you're 90%
Right? I remember watching that Spike Lee movie, Bamboozled.
Yeah. That's the one.
I was like, I hope this is not my life. Because I was young when I watched it. And I do it sometimes. It's not my full-time job, but it's still part-time, sadly.
So we hit the uni years, so the college years. What comes after the college years?
Yes, so I in college I knew I wanted to do community work. So, and I wanted to do international work. So I actually studied Swahili and African languages and literature along with pre-med. Because I had just heard and knew from my own community, a lot of the doctors, they don't know our culture. So the way which they interact with us isn't culturally sensitive or culturally knowledgeable. And they can't do the best work that they can do. And I wanted to do my best work.
Wow.
So after uni, I was like, should I do medical school? I don't want to do it in America. There's too many white people and it's hard. And they even do a thing in medical school called pimping in America.
Oh my
God. They keep you out for, between 24 to sometimes 36, 48 hours and just work you. And break you down in terms of, making sure that you're stupid and you don't know anything.
Oh, wow.
And then they build up your God complex. But it was the same thing they do in the Army. And I was like, I specifically didn't choose the Army or the Navy for a reason. I don't want to be broken down. Life already does that.
I'm quite happy, kind of just not collapsing.
Is that a kind of medical hazing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you see it in everything from fraternities and sororities. And I've seen it in every field, to be quite honest. Even my defense for my master's thesis and, the defense I'll do for my PhD, people talk about that too, the pummeling that you're supposed to get. And it's just, quote unquote, part of the process to make you stronger.
I can kind of see you needing that if you were white and you grew up in an upper middle class. But as black people are we started with that. Can we skip that?
Thank you. Right?
Ultimately, it is that point in all with academia. There's the institutions. It's this how it's done. It's but it's not. It's not good. It's not.
And I did my master's in ethnic studies and women's studies. So I did it in a field completely different than what I had grown up in, thinking, because we all talk about Audre Lorde and, embodiment and feminism and treating our bodies and each other right and with love. But as soon as that defense started, everyone switched, and I was like, wait, am I in a group of my peers or with, the white supremacists?
Right.
And not to say that they were, but it was that era, too, where, it became a barrier between us that I had to cross. And again, a hazing. I had to walk through the fire.
Yes.
I found it really interesting that you did women and gender studies. I remember I did it at Victoria, and you never saw men in the class.
And that was... And I always get that question or, explain why you here. What you doing? And it's too long to explain, but in essence, I grew up raised by women. Women raised me. And I heard them my entire life talk about their experiences, realizing how different it was than mine. It saddened me that to this day, and no matter what country I've been in, and I've been in several, I have not met a group of women who haven't experienced gender or sexual violence.
No.
And I'm like, what the hell? What does it mean that that's a part of your experience? And what does it mean that I can be existing with you and not see it or know it or have been taught to understand it or to empathize with it? And I didn't want to be the type of man that those women were in my life who I love were complaining about. Like, I wanted to be in relationship with my mothers, with my grandmothers, with my sisters, with my future partners, with future children potentially.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like anything I do in life. If I don't know something, I'm a seeker and a student, you know, just by nature. So I want to learn. So I went into that space to learn, to learn how to love.
That thirst for learning and that thirst for love is one of the excelsior parts of the Black experience that I think is not highlighted enough. And I think you are highlighting it in your existence.
Yeah.
And snaps.
Right? And it's who we are. You know, I'm not doing anything new.
Yeah.
What my studies taught me, and especially going back to Africa, is that that's always who we were. We always respected and knew about the queer people in our community, the women, the children, the elders, the people with disabilities. It's only this newfangled, you know, when we got into contact with colonization and imperialism, that we began to have these hierarchies of power. Yeah. Where some people had a voice and some people didn't.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, like one of my favorite authors, Marlon James, like, he talks about, like, there's a quote from I think he's quoting someone else, but then he talks about it's like Africa and was like in a lot of ways without I guess like kind of the missionary and the colonization side of things would be at the forefront of queer movements in the world. Like that's he was like without that kind of infectious kind of influence coming in.
The interesting thing is, like, you go to Japan and you learn that the race relation there is just so different. Like, and suddenly you, a Black person used to a certain format of racism, are like, wow, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And I find that there's something very similar in, like, many of the African countries, where the Eurocentric narrative around queer struggles doesn't exist there in the same way. Yeah. So when you introduce it, you're actually introducing more queer phobia to the dynamic, because the one that's there is like, oh no, of course we just accept a woman who, I suppose transition is not even the word anymore. We didn't think of you as a woman, you said you were a man, you walk around like a man, we accept you as such, because you're manifesting it truthfully. Yeah. And vice versa for, you know, trans femme to mem, we just wouldn't have thought of it that way. Yeah. If you're holding it correctly, we're not going to think about it. And I think that there's also a stereotype, I don't know if you've experienced this, which is, as Black people, we have a lot of queer phobia internalized, and especially as Black Americans, historically.
Oh, Africans as well.
Oh, yep, everyone.
Yeah. And from the Caribbean, I find it really interesting because, like, at the base of, like, some of the Jamaican patois, like, for, like, referring to people as dem man there. And it's one of those things that come up as, like, it's interesting that it's almost something that they couldn't quite stamp out. Like, from the linguistic roots of like things of Creole and patois languages that have kind of carried forward, is they can't quite stamp out, you know, the use of they pronouns. Yeah. Well, that's that sort of thing. It's almost you can kind of find these hints of what the master couldn't get rid of.
Yeah. I love having you here as well, just speaking on the Black queer experience, because I'm always like, so as a Black queer woman who's queer, loudly, where everyone can see me, and like it's always like you feel a little bit isolated, and when you get another queer person in the room, you're like, hey,
right, family. Yeah, especially in Aotearoa too, because that's the other thing, you know, that we all have to negotiate and have in some ways. What do we present first? What do people accept first? What do we fight for first? Do I have to fight for my Blackness, my queerness, disability? I'm dyslexic. Like, you know, which battle do I take? And will people who I'm with now, whether it be in academia or my lovers, will they accept all of me? Exactly. Can I present all of me? Yeah. And all the flaws too, you know, and all the glory and beauty of who we are and where we come from. I accept too all the narratives of the mistakes we've made, because that eases the burden of the mistakes I make, you know, throughout my life, because I am not perfect. My walk in queerness and Blackness has not been perfect. No. My walk towards women has not been perfect. I made a lot of mistakes, hurt a lot of women in my life. Men too. Queer people too. Yes. Children, disabled people. Yeah. But my core value has always been, I want to do better and I need to do better.
Yes.
So that's been motivating me forward.
Well, that's really beautiful. And that self-acceptance, and when you get to that space where you're not abandoning yourself over every flaw, everything that's not going to be accepted, when you get to that space of like, look, I'm not going to abandon me, so I probably won't abandon you.
Yeah, right.
That transition internally is huge, and it's hard, and you won't be consistent in it. So it's nice to hear you talk about that, you know?
And for a long time, it was easy to throw away other people because I threw away myself.
Yes, right.
So when I held on to myself, now it's easier to hold on to others.
Right, and those parts of yourself, like, you know, you get to this point where you're like abandoning more and more and more of yourself until you're in this tiny circle, and like all you are is only what you think will be accepted, which is not even true.
Yeah.
And then like one day you're just like, fuck it, fuck it, no.
Right.
Yeah, no, so I find it, I guess I find it like interesting, like especially when you said, I guess on the point of, I guess trying to work out like how do I take all these different bits of my identity, because I know like especially in black spaces that was like when I first, because where I grew up was very isolating, so when I first was starting around to be around other black people, it was always around this point of like, do I mention that I'm bi? Because like because I'm just like it was one of the points where everyone was, especially like from the religious standpoint. It's one of the people talking about going to church or always having church on Sunday. Always became that point of just like, I don't know. And one of my best friends now like had the same kind of thing. But like, both of us were like, we don't know if this is going to be a point that if we bring this up, like is this going to change our ability to connect with people on this front? Like,
I think those.
And also you got to remember, you were in Cromwell.
Okay. I was in Gore.
That's it.
Like, I think this thing, like, one of the parallels with the queer community and the black community is, like, being straight passing, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, in, like, for a long time, I had a buzz cut and I had flat chest, so I was straight passing because people thought I was a man, right? Yeah. And then one day, and then they'd talk to me and, like, they'd be like, that man has an awfully effeminate voice. And then, like, you know, one day I'm going through, like, basically the trans experience where I'm like, I think I want to be soft and feminine, right? Like, and so you go and you make that jump, and more people are mistaking me now for like, what are you, than they are. And then you finally make it, you're like, I've landed, I'm now feminine.
Right, and it's in vogue.
Right,
but
and then so you have that like like that, but for a long time you be able to be straight passing when you sort of understand the, like, you know, white passing, black passing experience. When, you know, you're in this dangerous space where, you know, if you were to just sort of say, hi, I'm a queer woman, like, you might get your ass killed. And suddenly, or at the very least, abandoned.
Yeah.
And it's in those spaces that can, like, make, like, have you found that too? Like, just like in those spaces where suddenly you're finding your tongue's just locked in your mouth and you're afraid to say, you know, oh, so my ex-girlfriend, you know?
Yeah. That's been my whole life. My whole life has been navigating that. And to be honest, only in the most recent years have I come to have like both a language, both a sense of mana, like, you know, a foundation in my own spiritual practice, my own personal belief, going through work around trauma and PTSD. that I can name myself now and try to communicate myself to others. But it's a game. In that, it's supposed to be playful. I don't know. I am evolving. I didn't know what non-binary was.
Right?
And people get, you either gay or straight.
Yes.
You know, if you bi, and you had the language in America, you were undercover brother.
Right.
And you had the potential to give your female partners HIV. So you were, you know, a spawn. Like, you could not be bisexual. You were unquestioning, but you will figure out what you were. You couldn't dip in both hot honey pots. And so now to have this whole language where you can be demisexual and pansexual, I was like, oh shoot, okay. I get more options to, like, now I can better negotiate.
But it's interesting, there's definitely been people that I've seen, like one of my favorite writers, Grant Morrison, had the thing where they were like, when I was growing up, like, they would said the language didn't exist, like, and I think they announced that they were non-binary last year, and I was like, oh, this is like, because I've always kind of felt this, I just didn't have the vocabulary, didn't have what was needed to actually define myself and describe myself. Like,
and my community didn't have the understanding or the definitions of this vocabulary to then accept the reality of myself, that I'm not the binary. I'm not, you know, in these prescribed norms of you have to be this. Because that's the danger too, I feel, and do see within the queer movement even now, where we have to put a label or you have to have an acronym. Some of us don't, and some of us do not need it. That's another thing too. Regardless of who I have sex with or who I'm in a relationship with, I am a human being at the end of the day, and so are all of we. So if that can be the foundation of the relationship, I don't need to know more about you top or bottom. You got a strap on or not. You know what? You going to get surgery.
Yeah.
You know, that's you.
Yeah.
That can be in the development of a relationship, but that's not how I need to know you, and that's not how I need to respect you. And I think we need to move towards that and understanding that too.
I actually really love the co-movements of some of us are like, I refuse a definition and a label, and I actually really like the fact that some people are like, oh no, my autism's going off and I need every classification and I need them all clean and organized and color-coded, right? Like, I actually really like that there are both camps, and I'm enjoying that I have gained a lot from the labels and as people have explored them in the years, you know, on Twitter, Tumblr, etc.
Yeah.
But I have spent the whole time refusing to adopt them. So it's wonderful hearing somebody else who has that stance, where it's like, oh, thank you for these labels. No, I'm not going to wear a single one of them.
Right.
I find that it's really interesting for me too, being a Gen. What am I? Gen X.
Yeah.
X-Men. Being an X-Men. That there are all these labels, because I got really confused. I'm like, when did we become she, her, them, they, and that?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Like, and I know there's a generation that are older that don't understand it.
Yes.
Because we'd been given just those binary male or female sort of situation. And I find it a little bit confusing. I know some of my older girlfriends are like, what do you mean they're women? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because it's and I guess there's another debate that's going to be going on there about that somewhere. But yeah, I'm finding it all a learning. It's all a learning experience, and you just have to sit back and just listen and just take it in and go, well, how is this? For me, it's like, okay, this is new, but I just got to take it in.
You do, and this is, in America, they did not give us a good understanding of history. So I hated history growing up, often because it was, white, about wars and stuff, or empire. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But in my own exploration, and I don't know if you saw, Questlove just directed a new documentary called Summer of Soul. And it was about... Is it on Netflix? Oh shoot! It's out in like festivals and theaters.
Okay.
So it's gonna come here, I think, in theaters maybe in September. So it's coming. So you should check it out. But it's about a black festival that happened alongside when Woodstock was happening.
Right.
But it was to address like all the issues of that time. And what I found like crazy was that during one of the songs and performances, they had the moon landing happen.
Oh wow.
And they were interviewing white people, and they were like, yeah, this is a great accomplishment for a human society, and it brought us all together. And the black people that they interviewed at the black event, they were like, yeah, it's nice that a white man went, or white people went to that, but we still got crime, we still got poverty, and to think even now with the BLM, with TERFs and women's rights, with queerness also being on the chopping block in different totalitarian governments right now, that we have certain white men going to outer space.
Yeah.
And some of us,
There was actually one guy, I don't know if it was a UN meeting, I just recently saw it on, and he called all of that out. He's going like, while we still got all these problems on Earth, it's very nice that the very wealthy people can, catch a ride to wherever.
Well, that's the Tribe Called Quest song, like space program. It's just like everyone and it's the weird premise of people like with like, if Earth is the uninhospitable to humans, we can just go into space. And they're not like if you're like
what white people
if you're anything but like outside of the 5%, like there's no room for you.
You won't be going anywhere.
or if you do, you're going there for mining operations. That's what you're going there for.
Exactly. Like that is one of the things that's more realistic, considering like I spent 10 years of mining, and when I see that, I'm like, that is the only reason, because it's all about resources, isn't it?
Yeah, that really is.
Yeah.
All right. Should we have a quick break with the tune?
I reckon. Get into it.
Well, we got Starlight by Yola. This is Octavius's pick, so I'll get him to introduce it.
Yeah, so Yola is a beautiful, beautiful singer. She has a tiny desk that you can watch on YouTube, but she's from the UK, but actually is inspired by soul and country. So I just love that as we talk and converse as part of the diaspora, we have always been in communication across, geographies, across culture, language. So I picked this song because it exemplifies that for me. Hearing someone from the UK sing in a way and with a twang that you get from America is just beautiful.
Perfect. Alright, this is Starlight by Yola. Yep, so
Oh, thank goodness.
and we are back on the Blackhouse, 106.1 FM. You're here with Eddie and Nani and Liya and Octavius. That was Starlight by Yola. That was a tune. That was
Right? You can dance to it.
I want to slow dance to that with somebody who has really big arms. I'm just saying.
It's like really big arms, slow dance energy for that
Yeah,
show.
right?
So there's another t-shirt slogan.
Big arms,
do it.
slow dance.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I guess as we mentioned before, you're a Fulbright Scholar.
I was. So I came to New Zealand on a Fulbright fellowship or scholarship in 2019.
Yeah.
But it was for a year, so I completed that. And then I applied for a PhD at Victoria University of Wellington to continue doing some of that work that had started with the Fulbright. So now I'm a PhD student.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Can I just ask, what exactly is I hear that word all the time,
Yeah,
a Fulbright.
Fulbright?
Yeah, what is a Fulbright scholar?
Fulbright is just one other program that gives you money to do what you want to do.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it's from the U.S. government, and it gives you scholars, so people who have, I think, at least a bachelor's degree, to go out and do research in another country.
Right. Okay.
So it's like I guess it'd be like the American equivalent of like a Rhodes Scholarship.
Ah.
Yeah, and it's an
Okay.
exchange program. So there are New Zealand Fulbrighters, so New Zealanders can go to America to study. So there's some now at Harvard, MIT, NYU.
That's what Gullet
Yeah, Gullet has, yeah.
that's one.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yes.
And my Swahili teacher in undergrad, she was a Fulbright scholar. So they often do that for like languages or special interest.
Yeah.
They'll bring teachers of particular languages and have them be teachers in them. And so you can also be a Fulbright English teacher in their countries if you want to.
If anybody's listening out there, I really want somebody to be a Fulbright scholar teacher in Swahili because I'm tired of being the only Tanzanian in the world that doesn't know how to speak Swahili. So, I speak what you call broken pigeon Swahili.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
I just can't respond. That's all.
It's the grammar. That's the one that does like, got a vocabulary, no grammar.
Yeah.
But it's phonetic, so Swahili is easier than like Igbo or Yoruba in that the way it looks on the page is how it sounds, which is what I love about it.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too. Like, my son's name, I gave him a Swahili name. And what I was looking for was something that, okay, I'm going to be in New Zealand. I want the people around him to be able to pronounce it, right? And I found that the pronunciation in Swahili is very similar to Maori, except that Maori has a couple of consonants like NG and no, they actually have that in Swahili, do they? I don't think they have WH, but they do have an NM, not an NG and an MW. So they do have that double consonant thing in Swahili that has a way of pronouncing like Maori. So, but even with that, they still stuff it up, don't they?
Look, if you haven't, my name has 2 syllables. If they're messing that up, they will do anything.
Yeah. And I've wondered about that too. And to be honest, it's something I had to unlearn. I always thought I was bad at languages coming from America. And I didn't do well in my Swahili classes at uni. Yeah. But when I was able to go to the country and immerse myself, guess what? I was really good at it.
Yeah.
It was being out of my own bubble.
It's
a cultural thing too.
Yeah.
Like America is very much about we are the culture, you need to learn us, we don't need to learn you. And in that environment, it's so hard to embrace difference, to hear difference.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, or at least I hear about it from, Pakeha or white New Zealanders as well, that they kind of have from the British and often from empires.
Yeah.
When you have that sense of power,
you don't need to.
You don't need to.
Yeah.
I think the big thing that comes up with language is how much, I guess, the American education system and the American language teaching system influences the rest of the
Yes.
world. Because when I was in Brazil, like trying to learn Portuguese, like the thing I really, really needed was like vocabulary. I just needed people to be conversing. Because part of what I did English language teaching as part of my degree, and that's one of the things that kind of like broke down from the get go. Was like from the get go was people need to be comfortable speaking. Like, you need to, and the big thing that I always found when I was in Brazil, and then I did Portuguese studying when I was in the States.
Oh wow.
And the thing that came up was just like they kept saying it was all grammar focused, and then it was so rote learn bits of grammar. It was like, or like when we had to do speeches, it was pretend like you're speaking. Pretend you're speaking like you're natural. Like try and make it as natural, like act. But I'm like, isn't part of the real thing here to be like to be actually getting people to feel comfortable to speak naturally and that sort of things. And I think
they tell you to speak naturally. Like actually, your job is to help you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the big things I've noticed with language learning, especially is that it's kind of like the American way of doing it. And maybe it's a Western way of doing it. But I definitely picked it up in the States. Was with a friend of mine in the States, like this is just how languages are taught in the States.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
I think that the immersion experience is really important too, because like I was in Tanzania for a period of time, and I found that I felt more confident speaking in Swahili when I was there, and then you come back to New Zealand, and the Swahili is the Swahili that people learn in another country, Kenya, and it doesn't sound like where I've just come from. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I've just learnt one kind of Swahili. Are you telling me there's another kind of Swahili out here? Yeah,
well, I mean, with almost every language out there, there's like the Queen's whatever. Like, I mean, especially
English does it too, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
English, Swahili, I bet you, and I find this in Japanese as well. It's like there's the Queen's Japanese, and then there's country hick Japanese, which is what I speak. No matter what language, you will have that.
And it's interesting with English, because you see like English, there's like people say like the UK, like you look at the UK and there's that many variations of English. Yeah. Like my family's from the West Country. Like my family are like, if you really want to talk about hick farmers, that's the stereotype of the West Country. Yeah. But then you go into like, I guess what was the British Empire, into the English diaspora languages, and you see how did patois come up? So how does Nigerian pidgin come up? It's that kind of, as you go through it, it's a point of like there is no real English, because England, like the UK itself, like England itself, has so many variants of it.
That's true, right? Like every different program you look at, there's another accent and another kind of use of the language.
They even have names for it, your Johnnies and your Scousers and your
and as well, that's the thing that comes down to it, is that it's interesting because when I was in Brazil, you had people, and especially when overseas, and in language teaching settings, people, if you have a non-standard, so if you have a specific English accent, so if you were Brahmi, or if you're from the West Country, or you were Welsh, and you have a variation in accent, that can disadvantage you because you're seen to not have a standard English accent. So therefore you can't really teach it because you're not teaching proper English.
No, you're a thug basically, as far as like anyone's concerned.
Which is why you send, like, I remember having a friend of mine who was born in Japan, was mixed race, Japanese English, but then went to like an English language school in Japan, and then spoke very, very very proper. And that's that point, and it was like, and then there's me where mine is like a mix with the West Country, some of that kind of upper class English, and London. And that's the thing for me was something, and she was like, it's really hard to place, because like, and I was like, I automatically picked up your voice, your accent has come from this particular type of English thing.
We got a little bit of that in New Zealand with the provinces, because living in Taranaki for so long, it's, I don't know what you call it.
Speed mumbling.
Yeah, is it speed mumbling?
Speed mumbling.
Yeah, the provincial accent is quite different from like Wellington. I remember first hitchhiking down here, because that's what you used to do that back in the day. And walking in, I'm like, why is everybody so snobby? You know, like everybody sounds so snobby. Like, what's going on? But it's just, I don't know what it is. It's something here.
Have you found, Octavius, that like when you're learning or speaking Swahili in your experience, like that they do have that north and south accent, like where they have the formal, taught in schools, and then people actually using it amongst themselves, where it's like all abridged and truncated?
Yeah, and even doing it now, trying to learn Tereo. But so in university, my teachers were from Tanzania, so they speak what is called Kiswahili Sanifu, which is quote unquote proper, because that's where the books that the Swahili books were written up by like, the missionaries and things. And then I did a year abroad in Kenya and stayed in Kenya for a year. So I was going.
Wow.
And this is the funniest thing too. So I would say samahani, which, and even in English, that's my go-to. Oh, sorry. Sorry for that. Sorry. And people will look at me all weird. They're like, we don't say that here. We know you're not from here. I was like, because if I didn't say anything, I could get by a little bit. But and so just that. So they speak more Sheng, which is like a mix, which is urban.
Yes, with Ebonics for Swahili.
Ebonics for Swahili,
So it includes English, it includes Portuguese, it includes like a little bit German. And it's different. So when I was in Nairobi, they would use certain code words that you would know, okay, you're from this region, you're good. But when I went to Mombasa and I lived there, and I would try to use the Nairobi to like blend in there too. They're like, no, we know you're not from here. So that's the thing, again, just like with gender, with languages too, there is no hard boundaries to languages. And we do when we play with it. And the more we try it, the more frustrated and the harder it becomes. But and that's what I had to learn. I had to stop seeing learning a language as a job. It had to be playful. I had to laugh at myself. I had to be okay with people laughing at me. And I used to tell people, I changed who I was in learning a language. And that's what it kind of does to you. You use a different... So in English, I would talk about some philosophy and racism and all these things. I can't do that in Swahili. I'm talking jokes. I'm talking basic things. I'm talking about the realities of life that we're both experiencing. And I was like, oh, this is another side of me that I don't often utilize or get to show other people. So
it's so beautiful seeing somebody else who's experienced that because I've learned a whole bunch of different languages. But I think the one that I expressed like the most was when I was learning Dutch. Dutch literally has a suffix for, no word for adorable, but a suffix for adorable. So if something's cute, oh, what a cute little mic, oh, what a cute little frog, oh, everything always looks so cute. And like, and only being able to express that things were pleasant and cute actually had a huge impact on, like, it's almost like in Dutch I don't have depression. Like, I can't. I don't know how. Like, and, so I'm speaking in Dutch and everything's, like, ik liefde van jou, like, it's just like, mine too, what a cute little shoes. And, like, whilst I'm speaking that way. And it was similar in Japanese, where, like, I could only sort of express certain concepts, or that is to say, I speak very informal Japanese. So it was always casual and fun and friendly, or it was philosophical, and it was exactly as you say. Suddenly, there's just sides of myself that were locked off to me in English that are now completely like there for me. So it's cool to hear like that parallel of experience.
You are not alone.
No. You feel like it was black and you're like walking around in the streets, but then another black person walks by you and you get that black person like, we're smiling at each other.
Right?
Like two ships in the night.
Alright, so perfect. I think we go another song and then I want to ask you about Black Creatives in our kind of final 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Oh, I wanted to ask him about the doing that stuff you're doing with the sea.
Oh, with the sea.
Yeah, like the sea study.
I would definitely get into
like and BCA. We'll do both.
BCA,
we'll do both. We'll speed do it.
Like 5 minutes on each. Okay. So the next song up is called "It's Okay" by Lion Babe and Ocean. Ocean are named after a duo named after the Yoruba goddess of love. They are really cool. They're like very Afrofuturistic.
Yes.
You'll love this.
Watch the music videos.
It's okay. Back on the Blackhouse, 106.1 FM. That was "It's Okay" by Ocean and Lion Babe. But we left off just before. We left off on your studies currently.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about like space and the oceans and all that sort of things. So I want to hear what your.
It's a segue.
It's a segue. I'm trying.
You're doing good. You're doing good. Let me slide on in with you, just like you slide into the ocean. So
There we go.
It worked. It worked.
Yay.
A full immersive experience.
Like
I have always loved the ocean. Yet, and I'm from California, LA, right? So we're close to it. Yet, I was never allowed to actually fully immerse myself into it. and my love of it at the time was always seen as like something white. Like, oh, you trying to be white, or that's not what we do. Black people don't
We
swim.
don't do yoga.
Yeah.
We don't swim.
All this crap.
You
right?
can't fly.
But I held it for so long, and that's why I did medicine and other things. I was trying to do something for the community, do something to help, not something that was like in my heart. Only now have I gone back to the ocean, and it's been the best thing, and to be honest, the most important time right now with climate change.
Yeah.
So my research looks at the relationship that us in the African diaspora have with the ocean, and what is some of the cross-cultural knowledge that we can exchange, converse with those in the Maori community around their relationship to Moana as well. And it's looking at both a historical, present, and future tense around that relationship. And in my research, I found that Africans, believe it or not, had a wonderful and beautiful and intimate relationship with the ocean. We knew how to swim. And I found a book that was written by a scholar in America who actually found recordings in early missionary and trader journals that talked about the fact that they could not swim. They didn't really have a good swimming culture back where they came from in the UK. And they were amazed and used to call Africans dolphins and mermaids because they were so adept at swimming in the ocean. So I was like, wait, how do we get from, again, just like queerness, and we talked about it, right?
Yeah.
How do we get from having this intimate relationship to a space to now many of us don't swim and don't explore. We get our feet wet, but I mean like knowledge where you can name an animal, that an ecosystem, that you can tell when your coral reef is deteriorating or not, that you can understand the swells and weather patterns so you aren't confused by a tsunami, our earthquake and what happens, with tidal waves and things like that. So my research looks at that. What is our historical relationship? What are we doing now, and what are the interactions with the ocean and aquatic spaces that we have? And then what are we passing on to future generations? What will our children know about themselves and about the oceans? And it's also predicated on the fact, too, that a lot of the places that I've been in Tanzania and America, here in Aotearoa, is by the water.
Yeah.
We live by the water.
Yeah.
So as the sea level rises, it's going to be, Water World, the Kevin Costner movie.
Exactly.
Y'all better know how to swim.
Yes.
When I was in Australia, I used to get into surfing and boogie boarding a lot in Taranaki, the surf highway around Taranaki.
Yeah.
You've been doing some work up that way, haven't you?
Yeah.
With they had all of that stuff was happening before '96. I was actually there, and the people that you're probably talking to now, that were involved in all of that stuff before '96. They are the ones that I used to be working with the Women's Centre and with women that were now running Tū Tamawahine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I came down here, and this was the first time I'd lived really far from, I felt like it was really far. It was only Newtown, but it felt like it was really far from the water, right? And I went first to Paikokariki. And that was where, me and my youngest son, we spent all our time in Paikokariki before I moved into the city.
Well, I think that there's a lot of connection between, I have had the same experience as you in terms of, I'm a water baby. I literally just got myself a hot tub fixed up, and I am living in that thing, right? So that full immersion, but there is even a part of me who's kind of consciously aware that to be so emotionally attached to water, to the point where I'm I would not live in Middle America. I couldn't do it. That's too far from the ocean. I can't.
Yeah.
That relationship is not traditionally seen as Black within pop culture and pop culture.
I think if more Black people did take up things in the water, I find it very stress releasing.
Yeah.
Surfing was one of the best things I ever did to actually be calm and grounded.
Yeah.
Boogie boarding has the same effect. But this that fear of the water, or that we don't do that sort of thing is if people, I don't know, maybe it's that grounding in the element. Strangely enough, when I'm in the ground, underground in a mine, I have the same effect.
every ecosystem we're connected to.
Yeah.
And that's why I always hate too, because people think like just because I do the ocean, I'm not connected to Whenua and like to land. All of it matters to me. I love doing my walks in the forest and meditating and calling out and talking to the trees, but I love doing the same thing in the oceans. And I scuba dive. And I remember the first time I was in Mozambique, so we should go. They do Portuguese there.
Wow.
And I remember the first time I was going to go down into the water, and I almost said, "This is not for me," because I wasn't at the weight I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I hadn't swum in years. I had meant to practice, but I didn't have the opportunity to. So I was like, is this worth it? Am I doing it? Will I die? As soon as I hit the water and went down, I was like, I'm home.
Yeah.
And that transformation, but the fear right before it too.
Yeah. It's like the first time you catch a wave and you're right at the top of the face, and then you start coming down. You're like, "What am I doing?" And this is so great.
The first time I went sea kayaking, like we had some family friends, we'd go kayaking, and the first time I've been in a kayak and like riding in on waves, or like the first time you flip a kayak.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's the rush, but it's fantastic.
I think there's also this thing, especially with, like they talk about bikini bodies, but there's this hilarious thing where when you're plus size, the water is the only thing that can hold you like that. You know, like you feel weightless.
You are at an advantage.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
Look at the whales. Look at the seals and stuff. All my plus size people get in the water.
Who was like, I'm like 2% body fat, and it'll be like 10, it'll be like 15 degrees, and
right, and you die.
You're like, how? Like,
you go die.
Yes, my blubber helped me.
I
was
know
warm.
It does. You're sitting in the water and it's holding you and you're embracing you. You're weightless. You're like, for the first time, literally uplifted. And I'm like, do not bikini body my plus size people. I need them in the water.
Yes.
That shit is so good.
Anyway, so I think unfortunately, that's probably about all the time we have today. So I want to thank you so much for coming in, and it's good. We didn't get to talk about Black Creatives, but that's good because it means you have to come back.
I would definitely be back. Yes.
This is the Blackhouse on 106.1 FM. You're in studio today with Eddie, Nani, Liya, and Octavius Jones. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
To close off, we have Can't Hold Me Down by Kuno and Popcorn, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yes.
Sending you all love.
Ciao.
Bye.